Oh, a very good afternoon to all of you, or should I say, a very good evening to all of you. And welcome to My Life, My Business Club. And our event is Wish I Was Here. And as usual, we talk about um, several topics, wide ranging, and it's all about how we need to enjoy the journey of life, our careers, or business while achieving goals and being fully present. So I hope that you will find our topics as engaging as possible. Last week, Shana spoke about something very interesting. It was the fertile void and and specifically how to use the fertile void when you feel stuck. Now, you can listen to this podcast on our, you can download it from our YouTube channel called the Mufasa Coaching Practice, and you can find it there as latest published. So this afternoon, doing a bit of a solo, and I'm going to be continuing my talk around business nuggets from a novice biker. I dealt with chapter 1 and in the beginning. Today I'm going to go straight into chapter 2 and talk about my first ride. Brief recap. I purchased a motorbike, and the reason I purchased a motorbike was so that I could be far more efficient in traffic and actually see more clients in a day while zipping around a radius of the East Rand, Johannesburg, and Pretoria. But without further ado, we'll talk to you today about that first 10-kilometer ride from the place I purchased the motorbike and riding home. Never forget it. Very excited to pick up the motorbike and put on all the safety equipment, the helmet and the jacket that I purchased, and the gloves and so forth, and the boots, should I add. Or did I have boots? No boots at that stage. Talk about that later. So here was the first thing that I had to contend with, was actually getting on the bike for the first time. The day I picked up the bike, I looked at it, and for the first time I realized that the bike was taller than what I realized. And so, lesson number 1, test drive a car, a vehicle, pilot some of the things that you want to do so you can learn something about it. I did not. I had the right advice. I did my research and all those kinds of things, and it was the right bike. And then suddenly realized that there were a few challenges when I needed to get on it. And so I did not test drive this bike before the purchase, and therefore never realized that the height was going to be an issue. So I want to encourage you, fully test your plan, right? No matter how big or small, test it. And then try to understand all the implications of the plan so that you can tweak the plan if necessary, or you can prepare yourself a little bit better. So, I had limitations when it came to this bike height. Firstly, I had to acknowledge that I wasn't going to grow any more taller. In fact, at my age, I was guaranteed to get a lot shorter. I was told that lowering the bike's suspension was not advisable. Other bikes you could do this with, but not in particular this Kawasaki. It's not possible to do the same with this type of bike. And so, how do I get on and stay on? So, I looked around me and decided, well, I'm not going to be too embarrassed. I pushed the bike to a level surface, and I got onto the bike like you would get onto a horse, like first put your foot in the stirrup. So I put my foot on the foot peg, and this is how I got onto the bike. Leaning to the right and balancing the bike on my left leg. Oh well, so far So good. Started the bike and off I went to the first set of traffic lights. And here's the first thing that suddenly hit me. You know, and you take this for granted. And I had to deal with immediate feelings of vulnerability. I suddenly felt so overexposed to, menacing four-wheelers, the normal cars on the road. And that, the lane of the road is that it's to accommodate vehicles of all sizes. All the four-wheeler sizes, whether they're trucks or whether they're little cars. But for the first time, with a two-wheeler, I thought the lane was too wide, too much exposure, too much space. And I would just want to unpack this for you as you're listening to this. Is that suddenly imposter syndrome flared up bright and ugly. And these were the things that went through my head. I felt like I did not belong. I tried to make myself as small as possible. And I was apologetic that I'm taking up space, mind you, and felt completely insignificant compared to the rest of the traffic around me. Also, as a driver, motorcar driver, I felt even further naked and exposed by not having a seat belt nor airbags to protect me. And so in any event, I also really discovered that the motorists do not see me. I started seeing that there were cars around me with bumper stickers that says, think bike. And just for the first time, I saw it. I never saw it while I was in a motor vehicle myself. But when I was on a bike, I suddenly picked this up. Stickers on motor cars that said, think bike. I thought that rather ironic. So the point is, I asked myself the question, these were like flashes. Like, why is this think bike on the car's bumper? Shouldn't this sticker rather be on the driver's dashboard or on the windscreen? So that if you are going to think bike, you need to keep it top of mind and be reminded. I wasn't too sure that being reminded as the particular motorist in a car, right, that this sticker would be any helpful. And here's what I realized. Motorists were looking to see other four-wheelers, and that's all they saw. They did not see a two-wheeler because they did not expect to see a two-wheeler, a bike on the road. So literally, I would see a motorist look at me and still, as soon as a car goes by, they think the road is clear and just swing in front of me. And this happened on the first 10 Ks of my journey back home, right? And so, with all these things kicking in, with this healthy dose of imposter syndrome, fear set in. And you know what? These were the things that were going through my mind. I was going to die today. I asked myself, what have you done? Why have you done so? And you know what? This was not the experience I envisaged. The whole thrill of the ride was absolutely absent. My imagination was in overdrive, and even a little Mini Cooper posed a threat. Anything with four wheels was now an issue for me. Sweat was pouring down my face. Yes, sweat. I wanted to get off the road and stop, and I wanted to call the shop, the biker shop, and ask them to bring a trailer to get me home. I mean, literally, these are all the fleeting thoughts that were going through my mind, and I wanted to regret. I so regretted my decision, and the classic case of, buyer's remorse kicked in. And the other thing that further inflamed the fear was I was told that for the first 1,000 Ks, the fastest I could ride this bike was only 80 kilometers an hour. So, the natural thing is that when you find yourself in trouble is that you pick up speed, right? so that you can accelerate yourself out of trouble. And so unfortunately, even though the flight impulse was kicking in, I could not speed up this bike. So I tell you what, it looked like I spent time in a sauna with all the sweat, perspiration just flooding my body. And then while all of this happened, I remembered one key aspect of the road rules when it comes to a two-wheeler, when it comes to a bike, is ride just off center of the lane. But the key message is you need to ride in the lane and own it. You need to know that you are nothing less. You are there, you've earned to be there, you licensed to drive, right? And therefore, told myself, others might be bigger and intimidating, but I have earned the right to be there. And so I embraced this right. So I needed to think that I was bigger than what I was. I needed to think that that sitting on this two-wheeler, that I was actually sitting in a four-wheeler. And I used my dearly departed miniature Jack Russell as my inspiration. Because as we know, if you're an animal lover, in particular a dog lover, you would know that little Jack Russells think they actually large Alsatians. They don't think of themselves as little. So I thought about, her name is Sasha. I thought about Sasha, and I, with a new dose of confidence, started to own my lane. And you know what I discovered? As soon as I started to own my lane, my visibility increased. The other motorists started to see me. The other motorists started to respect me. They didn't try to drive in my lane, overtaking me. No, they followed the rules of the road and overtook me on the right as I stayed on the left. And so I said to myself, since I belong, I will not be intimidated and I will keep to my speed limit. 80 kilometers an hour is good enough for me. And basically, control the flight impulse and breathe. You know, breathing is so important, and we do it in so many, it's very much part of self-awareness exercises, mindfulness exercise. Breathing is very, just noticing, breathing in, breathing out. And nowadays we have many apps that help us do so, which is quite strange really to some degree. But anyway, I did become a little bit more spiritual because on the road in that first 10 kilometers back home, I have never before prayed with such ferocious intensity. And I kid you not, this is absolutely the truth. And then after I managed to calm myself down, master the fear, and own my lane and feel like I belonged, several other things became challenges to me. And one of them was coming to a stop, because no sooner had I learned to take off, I had to then do this traffic light to traffic light stop start thing. And if you can remember, I said I discovered when I got onto this bike that this bike was taller for my legs, and there was a particular challenge with all of that. But coming to a stop is this was the first challenge. I as a cyclist learned how to balance on my bicycle. You could come to the stop, and all you do is you balance yourself on your handles, etc., 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 and this is how you stay in one place and you stay, fully vertical on the bike. But what I realized with a motorbike, it's a big, heavy piece of machine, and you don't do the same thing. You cannot use your past experience on this particular moment. So couldn't move the handlebars to balance, and so knew that falling over would become a certainty. I did okay when I was driving on the road, but when I arrived home, because short legs, and I slowed down and tried to balance, tried to move the handlebars, guess what happened? I fell over Very embarrassing in front of my neighbors. But these are the things I've just learned, is that you need speed in order to stay balanced. So that means you need to keep going, right? To stay balanced. You come to stop in a straight line and you put both feet down. Yeah? Fight the instinct that I had, that I learned when I was riding a bicycle, which is much lighter. And so I became aware of the slope of the road surface. Because when it sloped away from me, it meant I had to put my foot a lot further down. And so this bike had to lean a lot further down. And I could not put both my feet down when the road was sloping. I had to choose which was going to be the appropriate foot, whether left one and right one. I had to decide this one up front, and so usually, the road slopes to the right, from left to right, and when it's too steep, use the left foot. When it's on the gentle slope, the right foot is fine. Now, here's the key thing about coming to a stop on a motorbike, is that you got to signal your intent to stop, so that those who are around you are aware that you're slowing down. So you manage your deceleration and you don't do it too abruptly, but you do it smoothly. So you're probably saying, but Jacques, these things are so practical. Why are you talking about this in particular? And say, well, this experience are the things that offers nuggets that one can use in business or in a career or whatever it is you want to do. There are just certain things that, in my experience, I could actually adapt to what I was doing as a self-employed person. And so there's one thing that you need to know. Coming to a stop has to follow certain protocols. And then pulling away from a stop also required certain protocols. Is that I discovered that one of the most dangerous things to do at a large intersection is not to stall in the middle of the intersection, or the four-wheelers will crush you with their blaring horns or their myopia, because they don't see you, right? They're expecting other four-wheelers. They don't expect to see you in the middle of the road, stalled, while they are responding to a green traffic light. So what is literally in my control, right, in terms of pulling away from a stop situation, is number one, is the clutch, is knowing when to disengage and knowing when to engage. Then also the throttle. And these two things need to work in concert with one another. And the throttle is there quite simply to ensure that there's adequate fuel flow, right, to render the engine to function, to drive the wheels. So how do I move from idling to moving away? It's all in the clutch control. Now, as a driver, we all know this, right? The different feet that you got to use if you're driving a manual, of course, and not an automatic. And so the balance between this clutch and the throttle, what does it mean? So generally speaking, when you're at a stop street, your vehicle is idling, and so does the motorbike. It idles. And so idling as an adjective, if you look it up in a dictionary, means either avoiding work and just general laziness, or it could mean without purpose or effect or pointless. Now, idling as a verb also could mean, well, spending time doing nothing. Now, when it comes to the motorbike, it's an engine running slowly while disconnected from a load or out of gear. So basically, the engine is running, but the motorbike is not moving. So, Jacques, what is this all about? Well, I want to end off my talk really by talking about throttle regulation. If you have too little throttle, you will stall. And this one can equate to having strategy without passion. If you have too much throttle, you will stall as well. And this is having passion without strategy. The balance, just enough, is strategy with passion drives your purpose. And so endeth chapter 2, my first ride. And Well, Shanaz, I don't know how much you heard. I am done with my talk.
Hi. No, I heard enough, and I think that I mean, just there's several things that kind of caught my attention, but I was just thinking about sort of one of the things that I often try to discuss with my patients or my clients around what is in your control and what is not in your control, and often I find that particularly when my clients become overwhelmed, or I'm working with sort of government organizations or NPOs, and I work with a manager and they're feeling really overwhelmed, and they blaming government and DSD, etc. And MPOs are in quite a fragile position at the moment. And then I've often got to take the manager and the team and ask them about what is in your control and what is not in your control. And what I surprisingly find is that they haven't really thought about that in terms of what can they influence, what are the assets even, and what are the strengths, and in a way that those can contribute to addressing some of the issues that they currently have. So I really like that part. Other than I don't think motorbike driving will be for me.
Oh, well, hopefully, as I go on with the following chapters, well, maybe the bug will will hit.
I'm very happy to go along with someone, but I don't think kind of take charge of it myself. I mean, the other thing that obviously is useful is around thinking about the fear, and
Mm,
we've been kind of speaking about that in in several areas about
yes.
still kind of still do it, feel the fear, but still go ahead and do it. And how we're going to get out of our comfort zones around that. And one of my sisters is learning to ride on a very fast cycling bike. Her husband does the August tour, and so he's trying to get her into it. But really interesting, she had a go-karting accident as a teenager, and she is petrified of speed. So it's been quite a challenge, but I really like just how you kind of eased into it, and like what is in your control, and that regardless of the fear, you're gonna have to face these trucks and the people who can't see you and all of that. And sort of some very similar issues that she's been having in terms of the real fear of getting on this bike that is so fast.
Yeah, when I just relive that first ride, I think the most profound thing was, we talk about stay in your lane, stay in your lane, but owning your lane as a biker is so key. um, I don't know how often you've seen, when a biker who lacks a little bit of confidence would be riding right on the side of the road, and all the cars are kind of saying thank you very much, thinking that that gives them the right just to uh, drive past the biker, as if the biker is supposed to ride on the side of the road, you know, and that mental adjustment of owning the lane, riding in the middle of the lane so that you can be seen. Um, I didn't anticipate that it would take so much effort to do it. I had to talk to myself very sternly. But isn't it generally true though? And I equated it to having an imposter syndrome, the fact that I don't belong here, you know, and I'm insignificant really in connection with what's going around me, in this particular context. But having that confidence, and let me tell you, the adage of you got to fake it a little bit to make it. I guess I did that because my shoulders, when I got home, well, after I picked myself up after falling over, when I got home, but was so tense. The muscles were rock hard because of just feeling so stressed, being so afraid, and but nonetheless, to just fight the natural instinct and to stay in the middle of this lane. Said, I own it. So important that whatever it is we do, whether we're given a task, whether we're given a role, whether we're running our own thing, whether we're standing in front of people talking about something, own it. The more you own it, the more others notice you, and that's basically the one thing I learned very, very quickly.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that, and I think that sometimes it's this imposter syndrome, or feeling overwhelmed, or do we really belong here? Are we good enough to be here? That it comes and goes. So it's not something, if you've dealt with it once, it's not gonna happen, but it does pop in and out. Your career and your journey, in different ways, and that idea of just owning that space, and reflecting on that, I think, is really important. Reflecting on your authority, your position, what that role brings. And for the ladies, the women out there who can't resonate with a bike, my sister always talks about own your high heels. So own your heels when you're walking on those high heels. It's about, don't let the shoes wear you. You need to wear the shoes. So yeah, for the non-bikers, to kind of in your position as well, to own those pair of high heels, is very similar as well. So thanks.
No, no, that's beautiful. Actually, what a great analogy as well. Yeah, own your heels. And anyway, our time is up. But from me, there will be several more chapters as I share some of my experiences, as I continue to learn how to ride. And thank you, Shanaz, for joining me, co-hosting with me tonight. And I look forward to what you're going to be talking about next week.
Thank you, Jacques, and I really enjoyed this chapter. I think it's, yeah, I love the analogy part and how you're comparing it. And yeah, again, encouraging you to do the book, please. Thank you, and I will see you all next week. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye.